Hi, it's Breanne from Copilot for Caregivers. I'm so excited to be here with Theresa Wilbanks from Sustainable Caregiving. Thank you for joining me, Theresa.
Oh, thanks, Breanne. Thanks for having me.
Teresa's been such a sport with me. I had her log on an hour and 45 minutes ago to film this little bit of segue into the first book I'm going to read for the book club. And bless her heart, we've been talking around such supportive angles of caregiving and our passion for the last hour and 45 minutes. So thank you for spending the additional now 30 minutes to talk about the book. I met Theresa when it was at the height of my caregiving stress. I had signed up for a caregiving manager course and wasn't sure what to expect with meeting different people along the way with their caregiving journeys. And Theresa, you were always such a blessing from the time I booked your course into the pre-content. You had included some work to do for my managing caregiving stress. Do you remember what I'm trying to recall exactly? It was a couple months ago. Everything else I had to fill out to take your course, including watching The Obstacle is a Way. What other things did we have to do before the class that day?
I think there were probably some things about identifying what worked for you in terms of self-care and then kind of how those things might fit together. I think you kind of created maybe a bit about your support system. Do you recall? Figuring out like what gives you energy, what renews your energy or relaxes and calms you, kind of figuring out what those things are and how they fit together during your caregiving day.
Yes, and the reason why I don't always remember the other material was so pivotal for me in that time, but The Obstacle is the Way stood out to me so much taking this caregiving course, because when I first saw this listed as a pre-watch, Theresa has a video, it's about 11 minutes that someone put together to give you just a summary of what the concept is about the obstacle becomes an opportunity. So when I clicked on it to watch it on her page, I'm thinking, how is this linking? Where is this? I've read all much about how I'm doing my caregiving journey at this point. Where is this linking in? So I left it to the last part to do before our class. And right before I was doing my checkpoint of, okay, I have to meet Theresa. I was all my stuff put together, I get my stuff done for Zoom. I realized I never watched the video that's posted on YouTube and Theresa's webpage about the obstacle. So I still had a couple more chores to do for my son's care before heading into the class, and I started watching this. And so I'm multitasking with the video beside me while I'm caring for my son, and then all of a sudden I'm starting to see this pivotal switch in my thinking and direction change about what this could mean to my thought process. And watching this video, I'm thinking I was so intrigued to meet Theresa and how she thought this was a great point and touch concept for me to have before having her class. So my entry into The Obstacle is a Way was the video from Theresa for her managing caregiver stress class. And for you, Theresa, when did you come into this and dive? Because I've been caregiving for 4 years and this has greatly expanded my thinking about it. So when did you come into it and start applying it to your journey?
That's interesting, Breanne, that I also was sort of at the height of the stress period when it came on my radar. And I had already been caregiving for about 3 or 4 years as well. Realized that I'd learned so much that I wanted to help other family caregivers. There were many practical strategies that I had learned that I thought if I had just known those earlier on, it wouldn't have been this hard. But the one thing I was still struggling with was, I think, accepting the role, the emotions, the frustration, the anger, the resentment, all of that swirling that led to stress. And so I was determined to figure it out for myself, figure out why this is so hard. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I not managing this well when I managed other things in my life, my career? I was capable, but this was eluding me, the ability to manage these things. And so in my effort to figure it out for myself so I could help other family caregivers, I just came across this article about Amar Fati, and in it was the title of this book, The Obstacle is the Way. Now, when I saw that title, you know how it resonated immediately. I'm like, if that were true, if this obstacle of, resenting the role and all of this were actually the opportunity to solving this, that's what I need. So I did not read it at that point, but that's when I first found it. And I was in this search for the solutions for myself and to help others. So that was my first connection to it, was just seeing the title and knowing there's something there I need.
See, that's the beauty in your brain. When I saw the title, I was like, I don't think this one's for me, because it was definitely a different place of where my thinking was at for my caregiving journey. So I was seeing so many hurdles and the word obstacles that I was dealing with. And I was like, how is this the way? Like, I'm feeling I can't handle this way any further. So that's amazing that you saw it that way. I thought it was just such a pivot place for me, because I was seeing it as kind of the apprehension of this can't be true. There's no way it could be the way. So that aha moment for me was looking at it through a different lens. When beyond the title, watching a bit of that video that you had me watch to walk me through and really challenge like a change of how to think, and seeing things where it's not a disaster, but it may be an opportunity for something else. So, and that took a little bit of time. I still haven't read the book. So I think we met a couple months ago now, and it's been there as one of mine when your journey lines up of a good place to take in all that content. And you were the first person I thought of, a beautiful book to start my documenting more about my caregiving journey with this book with you. I have shared with Theresa. She's a Quake person for me. So she kind of shook me to the core with this concept of changing my caregiving journey. So for that, thank you so much, Theresa, for to really re-envision how I can incorporate such a beautiful philosophy into caregiving.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think we were closer to the same place than you imagine, because when I saw the title and Amar Fati, which is Love Your Fate, I actually was so far from that and from imagining how the obstacle would be the way, that's why I felt like I need to understand this better, because at this point I can't relate to that at all. And I often said, people who found gratitude in their caregiving journey, they were like, they were on a different path. It was on a different planet. Like, I could not relate at all. And when I saw Love Your Fate, how could I love this fate? This is my biggest nightmare. I'm not managing this well. It's just all the stress. So I think we were sort of in the same place, and I just needed to understand better how these bold statements could be made. And then that's when I read the book, and I'm so grateful that it has helped you as well, because it was the pivotal point for me. It was the turning point. When I realized that the obstacle was not going to change, but my perception of it could change, and it was going to be difficult no matter what. But if I was able to flip that switch, find that new perspective, there were gifts hidden. And if I didn't flip the switch, I would never find the gifts. The obstacle was still going to be there either way. So I needed to do the work to figure out then how I could, come to a better place. And that reading the book helped. So many of the chapters resonated. I didn't expect that. Mm-hmm. Like, this could have been written for family caregivers, and yet it wasn't at all. It can be written for someone who's in business. There's just so many ways that it applies to our everyday life, but it felt so much like it was just speaking to me. And just that first obstacle I felt like my freedom had been taken away. And then how can I flip that script and feel like I'm where I'm meant to be, and what benefits can be gained from this, And there were so many after I was able to do that. And then you find out the obstacle is the way, it's the path. It becomes the path. It became the path to my future and everything that I was trying to do, figuring out the way to make the journey meaningful for myself, for my dad, who I was caring for, and then for other family caregivers. I mean, what a gift is that, to be able to help other people. So figuring it out for myself helped me figure it out for others. And that to me is just the perfect example of how managing caregiver stress, it was affecting my life in so many ways, physically, emotionally. I was able to help myself solve that and then help other people by accepting that there's just opportunities underneath this obstacle. We just have to figure out what they are.
It's so powerful. When I first read it as your course material, I guess the difference for how I was thinking at the time is I was struggling to survive my day-to-day. So at the time I had been getting, you have those people who tell you more self-care, or do this or do that. So I was trying to find how to help my day And when I first read the title and came across this concept, I was like, I don't want to read one more thing that doesn't work for me. So if I don't instantly feel the obstacle is my way or connect to it, I didn't feel I had the energy to listen to one more thing that wasn't going to fit for me. So that's why I was like, I'm going to leave this to the end, because I really enjoyed filling out your content and going to your webpage, Sustainable Caregiving, to see there was resources for me. There was ways that I could apply things to my day. I was nervous to read something that would give me a reaction again. And I didn't want to feel that emotion where my heart will get going fast, because I was like, well, no, this isn't what's going to help me. This isn't what's going to help me. And just that sense of urgency where I needed to feel a better day, that I was fearful that if I looked at the video you had recommended, I had to read for the class. If I watched that 11-minute video, it might put me in the wrong mind frame. And I already knew my mind frame was in a place of kind of going more pessimistic or not good mental health places. And I didn't want this to kind of be a trigger before. So I left it so last minute that then I did almost what you shouldn't do. If this is going to give me a reaction, why am I watching it right before I have to click on Zoom to see you? So my apprehension wasn't more, I need to know more. It was, please don't set me off in a worser state. So that was my nervousness about diving into it. And then the video, it's so beautiful to talk about the power of choice and your attitude about things. So again, I was still like, oh, I don't know if I really want to hear about these right now. And then when it started to talk about like normalcy of things, like reactions are normal and automatic. You're going to have a reaction. I was like, okay, I can definitely connect to that. I'm going to have a reaction. And your body doesn't know the difference. And this is where I was like, tell me more. Because I wasn't truly aware of how you feel things mentally reflects on you physically, and your body doesn't know the difference. So fight or flight, it talks about in your video that you have me watch, that if you feel that, your body doesn't know the difference, that it's not running through the woods, fight or flight from someone coming after to get you. Honestly, I could feel it in my house, fight or flight, say with a seizure. I'm caring for my son that has complex medical needs. I could feel flight or flight. My body doesn't know the difference. So starting to watch on this video is like, okay, I feel like there might be a way to help me then, if now I'm starting to understand a bit that my reactions emotionally are normal, but they do impact me physically, and what can I do with this? So as it kind of dove through very practical things that you can start to connect to. So without thinking to, I was starting to connect to this concept more and more about where your perception is and how it's a chance to move us forward. And I started talking about that. I was like, okay, how is this going to move me forward? Because that word was, again, like just this pivotal place of yes, I need to go forward. I'm not looking to go back or stay the same. So give me, now I kind of was like, are you a little lifeline maybe? I didn't know was there. So that's where I got a bit more intrigued with thinking, okay. And then the video Theresa had me watch was about a king with a boulder in the way of the path. And is this a concept within Ryan Holiday's, who wrote the book, The Obstacle is the Way? In the video I'm referencing is on YouTube and Theresa's webpage, just to summarize it. Is this video very much Ryan's concepts, or is it the gentleman who made the YouTube to summarize everything? Like when he talks about the king and the boulder, is that within the book?
It's Ryan's concepts, but Blanco is who did the video. It's his interpretation of it, which is so beautiful, because I think you're right. In 11 minutes, he really just sums up the whole concept. And you're going to read the book. When I read the book, it just went so quickly because everything was resonating, you know. But I love how he in 11 minutes can just sum up why this is important. Obstacles make us emotional. And like you said, you know, it's interesting how we can imagine a situation as, you know, we're going to go into something stressful and our body tenses up. And then our thoughts, you know, our negative thoughts come, and then it's a feedback loop, like you said. Or it could be we think something and that it's negative, and then that causes our body. It could just either one can come first, chicken or the egg, but the feedback loop is what keeps us in that stressful place. And the more we practice, you know, recognizing that it's our perception and our choice, which is hard to hear. The last thing I wanted to hear was that it was my choice to be stressed. It was my choice to be frustrated or angry or resentful. That was you know, that was a bitter pill to swallow, and it took some time to process that and accept it, and then be able to move to a different place. But once we do that, and we do it a few times and we see the result, then we start to move there more quickly. So then we see an obstacle, and I think in the video, it won't be that you just see this obstacle and say, oh great, I have an obstacle I get to deal with. It's not exactly that, but you get more quickly to that place of what's the opportunity, you know, and you start to see things from every perspective to figure out why it feels like such an obstacle, why, you know, what's really going on here, so that you can figure out what the gifts are. So yeah, the video I just absolutely love, and I could watch it over and over again because I always get something new out of it each time I watch it. And I hope that they've met those two, because they both created something wonderful. Yeah.
It was, and I definitely agree with what you say, that I didn't choose this and tough pills to swallow around things. When I was watching it, when it's talking about your choices and approach to things, it's like, I don't want things to be this hard. I'm not making my day harder. So that was where I was nervous with my thinking of feeling how I was doing my day, and I was having an impact on that. I wasn't sure where I was gonna perceive that or take that with my thoughts. So I thought at the time, this is gonna hit me too hard. But then when I started to see that, okay, am I making my day harder for some reason? Or how could I make this a bit easier? Am I adding to my stress with things? And that was definitely a nice reflective time in the ease of watching this video. And just like he says, I really appreciated hearing honesty of nobody wants an obstacle. Nobody wants to be doing these things. They're just a fact of life, and you're gonna have them. I was like, I just felt a little bit lighter to hear you don't want an obstacle. We're not saying that skip up to find difficulty in your day, but they're there, and how are you gonna control what you do? So in the visual with this big boulder on my screen, and he walks you through the king places that there to watch how people are gonna handle it. And at the end, this is what was a point for me that I remember, there was writing on it that said, the obstacle in the path becomes the path. And he had me there for a minute. I was like, how? It's like, never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve your condition. Mm-hmm. And that's where I was like, okay, I still would have to sit back and think about the obstacle in the path becoming the path, but I can definitely connect with every opportunity is the option and choice to improve your condition. And I was like, okay. So now I'm more in this with you about how does this improve my condition? And to go back to just thinking it's the way you're thinking about things. Like you said, once you try it a little bit, it can become a bit easier for you. So in my day, when I'm coming up to some caregiving tasks I have to do, I'm mindful of my perception about it a bit more now, even just from watching the 11-minute video. And then I'm excited to be in the place to read this book, because I think it will be even a bigger expansion of how it can help me with my day-to-day stress. And little things that before coming into this concept, Theresa, I have quickened how it used to stumble me before. So ordering equipment for my son, it's really challenging. There's a lot of different people involved, where there's a company who creates a wheelchair or a standard, and then they work with a vendor who is the person who gets it locally to where you live, puts it together, is the contact point if pieces aren't proper for your wheelchair. The wheelchair is the most current one we're going through. But the vendor doesn't work with the family like myself. The vendor works with a therapist who's the prescriber for the equipment. So for me to get this equipment from a company, I'm quite comfortable with my son's equipment now. It's been 4 years that he's had standing frames or his hospital beds in our home, or different things we've had to use for his mobility with his wheelchair. You get comfortable with learning how to tighten nuts and bolts and screws on them. But within this, there's communication difficulty for me, because I'm not the person who gets the control over any of the order. I don't see the order form. I don't get to fill it out. I can try to, there's not much online for the family because the company deals with other places. So there's a bit of hiccup around it. So coming into this, there was the challenges I've had over the years came up, and normally they would be stressors for me, and I would carry it, and I would feel so much personally about how challenging this process is for me. But this time around, I was a bit more free, because I'm like, okay, I knew this was coming. How am I going to choose to handle this? How can I let this feel different? So maybe I won't carry it. acknowledge what I'm feeling about this, but I gotta let it go because I can't carry it into tonight or lose sleep tonight over my wheelchair hiccup I'm having right now. I foresaw this happening. There's so many people in the process. This was gonna happen, but it's my choice around it. So that has been so freeing to know, choose something different right now. Don't make it spread beyond just this little glitch. So thank you for that, because already this week, like I used this already with hiccups about the wheelchair. I thought this would, at the beginning when I first started to try this skill, it took me a lot longer to wrap my head around. Just like saying the obstacle in the path becomes the path. Like that one's still, you have to, it's not so natural to me yet that part, but it's more like improve my condition. I can connect to that in the videos. Okay, I'm going to improve this, and how can I do that? So I've grown a lot in understanding this philosophy around it. And with being a mom and a parent of a special needs child, did you see this being able to branch, how it connect to you for family caregivers to a situation like myself when you were going to come talk to me about caregiving?
Well, I think you just demonstrated a great example of how it works. And so I do believe, because it wasn't written for caregivers and therefore it wasn't written for a certain type of caregiver, it was just written for any of us who experience obstacles. And as a family caregiver, there are so many obstacles. I did feel like while your situation is, completely different from mine and from many folks, we all have a unique situation, but yours is definitely unique. I felt like this is something that can resonate with everyone if you can internalize and understand it. And you brought up two really great points, and that mindfulness plays a part in this, because with mindfulness you recognize that you're dealing with an obstacle, because you might feel that emotion first. You're seeing this obstacle, it makes us emotional. It takes a bit of mindfulness to realize what's going on. There's different reasons why we can feel emotional, and if we realize it's an obstacle that's making us emotional, then we can move into that, how can we look at this differently? What is there to gain from this? And yeah, so I feel like for that reason, it does, it does help us in so many different ways, not just with caregiving, but life in general. And yeah, I really do love your example, because you figured it out, not just for you, but you're going to be able to help other people with that, which is another one of the gifts that often can come, from the experience. You've reduced your stress, you've, found a solution, and will probably continue to find more within that obstacle. So yeah, I just love that you haven't read the book, and yet you're applying the practice and you're seeing the benefits. So I can't wait for you to read the book, because I think you'll get a lot out of it. Yeah.
It was only stumbled or came into my radar because of your recommendation. So it's meant a lot that you're spreading the obstacles away and Ryan Holiday into caregiving world, and how to think about it for caregivers, because it greatly does impact our life for the better. I was listening to Ryan talk about his work, and even how he resonates with, coming into obstacles, you can use it to your advantage. So it can be like a chance to get comfortable with failure. Even when he says that, I was like, what? Like things are going to happen. Get comfortable with them. So even if it's something you don't want to have happen, like again, I'm trying to coordinate 5 appointments for my son right now, 2 hours away. So I'm like, how can I coordinate this? And it's like, get comfortable with, or it's a chance to practice. So it's a little bit of an obstacle trying to time all these, but what am I practicing right now? Or what can I gain through this? So instead of saying this is going to take time, I don't want to be doing this. Somebody else should take care of this for me. Or how could they think I need to, all these different ways I could let my brain think about this. It's like, okay, what am I going to practice? Or what have I done in the past to help? Or who you could even go to help somebody with your obstacle and ask somebody else to do it with you or for you. So there's so many different ways now, instead of thinking, I don't want to do this, I don't want this to be part of my day, to see the opportunity in an advantage of this obstacle. So thank you so much. It's greatly expanded. I'm really excited to read the book. And I did try Kindle recently to see if I was gonna like that for my book club, and I'm not a fan of reading on there. And I thought about another healthy way, because Ryan Holiday is all about putting your stuff together and using it to your advantage. I'm trying to get out more. So I actually have downloaded the audio book Getting out more, it's just for fresh air and a walk. I care for my son inside all the time. So by getting out, I'm just going to step outside my door and go for a walk around the same block. So I'm close enough. If my son needs anything from caregiving perspective, I can pop back in. But so Ryan will be in my ear reading me The Obstacle is the Way as I do my healthy walking outside. And that's how I'm going to dive into this book. I'm starting to read. How long ago did you read the book, Theresa?
It was probably about 2.5 years ago.
So I'm going to dive into it on May 1st. I'm starting. And my goal is to read 10 pages a day. Listen to, for this one, 10 pages a day. And with that, I'm giving myself a month because I can't recall how many pages off the top of my head, but it's not 30, it's not 300 pages. So I'm giving myself leeway and flexibility that there's a couple days I can't get my 10 pages in. I have room to still get my book done in a month. So I think it's a nice action plan because I'm giving myself manageable goals to read the book. It's going to help me. I think feeling self-growth is a way of care for ourselves. So feeling like I'm growing through the book will be a positive thing. And then also knowing, Theresa, that you've recommended it for caregiving and our journeys to help us will be a nice connecting day to just feel a bit connected to Theresa through The Obstacle is the Way while I listen to Ryan. So I really appreciate you branching this into our world, and I'm hoping, and so we're going to have one more conversation in a month when I've done the book, just to take me after finishing the book kind of on the descent to my final destination about what could be my long-term takeaway from it. So for today, if you're happy to now take me on the runway off into the air as I launch into my book with a last healthy comment or statement or words of encouragement you would pass to me or anybody else reading the book at the same time.
Yes, well, Breanne, I'm going to just reiterate a couple of things that you said that I think are so important to keep in mind when you read the book. And the first is, it's okay to, when you see that obstacle and you have that emotion, to lean into that emotion, feel it. It's okay to feel it. You can feel the anger, feel the frustration, you can vent, talk about it, and then hopefully move to that place where you're, kind of changing your perceptive and your perception and get to a place where you find those gifts. And and then you also, I can't remember the other thing you talked about that's just so meaningful. Oh, data points. So if you make a mistake, or you don't handle things the way that you wish you had, it's just a data point. It's just something to learn from. It's an opportunity to then, figure it out and to do it better. Maybe, just move more quickly to that obstacle to opportunity next time. But don't beat yourself up because this is hard stuff, what we're dealing with. And I really hope that this book resonates with everyone. And the really cool thing is I've read it a couple of times now. Gone back and read different chapters. I'll read the chapter with one obstacle in mind, and I'll come up with these ideas and think about it in one way, and then I'll read it with another obstacle in mind. And it's amazing how, it's still meaningful, resonates, and come up with different ideas. So it's just, it actually it was my guidebook through caregiving, which is such a weird thing to say. People have different, guidebooks that's sort of standard operating, procedures. This was my guidebook. This was my go-to. It's putting a lot of pressure on the book, but it's what I went back to each time that I felt challenged. I wasn't handling something the way I wish I was handling it, or I felt like an obstacle was insurmountable. Yeah, so I just hope everybody enjoys it as much as I have.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that tidbit that this was your guidebook for caregiving. Yeah. I'm really excited to read in that lens. And what's beautiful is I watched Ryan Holiday do a TED Talk, and he talks about, he has a guy, I don't know, you've probably watched it, but I've only come into Ryan Holiday through you, and then starting to look a bit more into mindfulness. He's crossed my path in different ways, so we realigned again in the content. But Ryan Holiday speaks about his book. I can't recall what his was, but he has one that would, no matter any transition or change, he goes back and he shows an image of how mattered up and ratted his book is, because he does it. So it's so beautiful that he's done that for you, because he has his guidebook and now you have yours. So maybe when we see you again in a month, if you have your original copy of what it looks like and how many times you read it, because that's so inspiring that you found your guidebook. And I know I didn't ask if I could share this, but I know you're working on your own book. So maybe that's going to be a guidebook for myself or some. I haven't found my guidebook yet necessarily, so it's on the market, Theresa. So maybe yours will be my guidebook when you get that published. Are you hoping for this year?
Yes, this year, definitely this year. It's with the editor, so we're just going back and forth right now, and I'm so excited for it too because I just think it's strategies for sustainable caregiving. So it's my journey just to get to a sustainable place, and that's what the book is about. So thank you for bringing that up, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's what else I would love to touch on before we say goodbye quick is how much your title resonated with me. Because when I was so stressed out last year before we met, the sustainable caregiving, that word sustainable, I was like, yes, how do I keep this up? Because I'm in the thick of it day in and day out. And I was like, how am I going to keep going? So thank you for all that you're doing and being such a blessing to my journey. And I'm excited to read your book recommendation. So you have a beautiful, I promise, as soon as we leave this meeting, I'm just going to hang up because if I stay to talk to you after, I'm just going to keep you on the phone even longer. So or on the Zoom. So I'm going to end meeting right away, Theresa. So you're not stuck listening to me because I appreciate everything you're doing for family caregivers. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Breanne. I appreciate you too.
Okay. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye. Happy reading.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.